Welcome to the Health Changers across the pond and back. And all of us here are passionate about helping people to change their health destiny. Today's topic is about toxins. And Frank is going to be talking about environmental toxins in relation to hormone disruption and obesity. Jayney's going to be talking about toxic relation, frenemies. And I'm going to be talking about environmental toxins, and Gareth is going to be talking about toxic attitudes. So lots to come. So let me introduce our amazing panel. This is Dr. Frank Sabatino, who's been plant-based, I think, since Moses parted the Red Sea. So he recently completed a book called Weight Loss, Compassionate Weight Loss for Life. He also has an online course called Lean for Life, The Science of Effective Weight Loss, and you can find more at drfranksabatino.com. We have Jeanne Goddard, who's the president of the Complementary Medical Association, and she's one of the leading experts of natural anti-aging and integrative medical fields. And she's written several bestsellers, including Rewind Your Body Clock. I mean, please look at the woman. I mean, like, she looks amazing. Like, please, like, you're just incredible. And then we have Gareth R. Davies, and he helps others to reduce or eliminate high blood pressure, their medications, through his no meds method. You can connect with him at healthchangers.net. And I myself, I'm Jeanne Schumacher. I'm founder of Simply Plant Based, and I have several programs to help people transition to a plant-based lifestyle, including the Weight Loss Advantage, and we just launched the Pregnancy Advantage to help women get their bodies pregnant ready, or if you're having trouble dealing with fertility. So, well, let's move on to toxic attitudes towards change, towards food, towards learning with our own Gareth.
Yes, thank you very much. Well, you've heard about toxins in fossil fuels from Frank, and toxic people from Jayney, and also personal care products from Jeanne. But you know, all of those things can be lessened or made worse by your own personal attitude, in my opinion. Having a toxic attitude, you might not even understand it. You might even realize how powerful it is. I first started understanding that when I read this account maybe 20 years ago, and it was about a guy who was working in a wagon, unloading a wagon. It was a cooler wagon, a temperature controlled wagon, and him and a couple of his mates were doing similar things, working on a number of them, and they didn't realize he was still in there, and they closed the door at night at the end of the shift, and the wagon was empty, but the guy was still in there. But they closed the door and they went off. This chap, must have just been terrified, being locked in there. And the reason they knew what he was like, because he started scratching eventually on the walls of the wagon, that he was freezing and he was going to die if no one came in the next hour, and blah, blah, blah. And he did actually die. They came in the next day, they opened it up, and this guy was there. And with the autopsy on him, was like he'd frozen to death. But that unit was not switched on. It was all the power of his mind and what he was thinking. And that is how powerful our mind is. And used in a negative way is just going to make all the things you've heard today a lot worse for you. So let me just run down a couple of things, and I'll just go over them briefly. What is I like to ask people, like I'm having a conversation with you, is what is your attitude towards sleep and rest, for instance? Is it, I can get by on 4 hours, or 5 hours a night. It's no problem for me. Margaret Thatcher did it. I'm sure there's lots of other. Donald Trump only sleeps 5 hours a night or whatever. Maybe there are some people who can get away with that on a long-term basis, but most of us can't. There's a reason we feel tired in the morning. Is it's good for us to have 7 to 8 hours sleep a night. How about exercise? I'm part of a mastermind group based in the UK. Actually, I'm the only one outside the UK, and we were talking about how we get our work done in the daytime, because in this lockdown period, most of us are working from home, and how we exercise. And I said, well, I give myself a couple of hours in the morning to do some work, and then I reward myself with exercise because I go out and ski. And I spoke to one of the other members a couple of weeks later, and they said, I couldn't believe it when you said you rewarded yourself for exercise. That's the worst thing. He said, I would reward myself with some chocolate. I get that. Because it's a very powerful stimulant, chocolate. I'm just asking you, whoever's listening, what is your attitude towards exercise? And it doesn't have to be, I've said this before, but it doesn't have to be 2 hours of cross-country skiing. It can be going for a walk for 20 minutes, but what is your attitude towards it? How about to be learning? I mean, listening to you three guys every time we do this, I learn something every time. I've been on your site, Jeanne. I've read your book, Jayney. I've bought your course, Frank, and been through the course. It's fantastic. And there's many others out there who if you keep that information going in, it'll keep you positive about your own health. And I think it will allow you to know that you're in charge. Actually, you're in charge in most cases of your own health. COVID. Yes, we need to know about it, but we don't need to know about it 10 times a day. And we don't need to watch the news 10 times a day to hear about how many deaths there's been, etc. There are some people who completely live their lives, in my experience, on the news, and they've been very let's say not happy. They've been motivated by being the first ones to know how many people have been infected, how many people have died recently. It is impossible. I heard this and I love it. It is impossible to learn something you think you already know. And so what that brings to mind is people I know who are sick, mainly with, like I said, blood pressure. I deal with a lot of people with high blood pressure, and they say, well, it's in my genes. My parents had high blood pressure. My uncle had high blood pressure. I've got 6 people in my family who died of heart disease in the last 30 years. Well, you probably eat the same stuff, exercise the same way, have the same toxic attitude. But no, I'm a bit extreme there, but you get the idea. It's not in your genes. It's mostly in your diet, or a lot of times in your diet. So those are just some of the things I would ask people to consider. Pretty much along the same lines as sort of what Jayney was talking about toxic people. And on that point, one thing I learned to do many years ago was, if someone was talking to me, you mentioned this, Jayney, they were talking to me in a negative way about someone else, I've learned to stop them and say, just want to let you know, anything you say to me, I might repeat to that person. And I usually just shuts them up, and they get the picture and either run away from me, or they'll realize, as you said, that they would be a negative, Jayney. They will change their way. So that's just what I want to put out there, that all of the things that you've heard about tonight, they can all be made a lot better by having a positive attitude about things, by not gossiping about other people, by not watching COVID 10 times a day, the news, and by keeping a positive mental attitude about yourself and be in control of a lot of your environment. We're nearly all in control of our environment, where our health is affected so much. Thanks.
Gareth, I thought that was absolutely fantastic. And obviously, likewise, we learn so much from you and your unique perspective. And yeah, I think it's so important to monitor, as you quite rightly say, I think, that we monitor what we're exposed to. But I love the idea of rewarding yourself with exercise. It's a very, very interesting thing. But I wanted to ask you, how much of that is about you having been a professional athlete? Obviously you're a person whose body is used to exercise. You live, eat and breathe exercise. How easy is it for somebody who has not had the advantage of that incredible background to actually then be able to switch, to be able to feel that exercise could be a reward?
There's lots of information out there on exercise, on the benefits of exercise. And it doesn't, like I said, it doesn't have to be 2 hours of cross-country skiing. I've got a great example in the house here. My wife is not, doesn't even like running, okay? Won't do it at all. But last year, what she realized was she did need to move a lot more. So she put this 10,000 steps out there, and she created in her diary, she had a 31 squares in a month, a page for a month, and she put a link crossing the 01 to 02 when she completed the 10,000 steps on the 1st of January last year. And then on the 2nd of January, when she did it again, she joined up the link crossing the the first and second to the second and the third, and so on. And she did not want to break that link. She lost some weight. She felt better in herself because she did it every single day last year. And now it's a habit which she can't get rid of. Your habits become chains which are either good or bad. And now she's into a habit. She's been out today walking 17,000 steps with a friend. It was a beautiful day. Now they could have sat on the balcony, but they just talked together as they walked instead, because they're both in that mindset. So I don't think it needs to be someone who's been in professional sport or has real loves to exercise. Like, I love going out since learning to ski, and I'm able to do that here. But it just needs I think we all need to realize we need to move our bodies.
The conversation about mindset is so incredibly important, because what happens with all attitudes is that I think we all have experienced that it's not so much what happens, but the perception of what happens that becomes really important, that has an impact on people. And that's, of course, what we see even with stress. I have people that lose children and they function, and then other people have a hangnail and they're in bed for a month. So the way they look at the world that they're experiencing, that mindset, and if the attitude is toxic, as you mentioned, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, meaning that it tends to just reinforce a whole negative view of the world, so it feeds that toxicity. One of the hurdles that has to be overcome for all of us, and I think we've all done it in our lives, is that until you experience the benefit of a set of choices that you make, you don't identify with that consequence as much. But when you do, like if you have a beneficial outcome from doing exercise, you may have a sense of well-being. Or if you were in a lot of pain and now you eat differently and you don't have that pain, you start to reinforce a mindset that is so dramatically different if you will give yourself a chance to get over that initial hurdle. That's where residential programs have been so helpful for people, because they come in with all the chips on their shoulders, all of that toxic attitude, and even almost a rebellion against what you may be teaching. But as they start to experience it, something else may occur in terms of quality of life or better performance, and that reshapes that toxic attitude. And they realize that, as you mentioned about the genetic thing, we know that, genetics loads the gun, but lifestyle pulls the trigger, as we say, because that epigenetic effect has such a big impact on outcomes. So once you realize the power that you have to make change, once you realize the power that's in the consequences of those changes that you've made, that can start to reshape some of those toxic or devastating attitudes. But what you bring up is so important, but we have to get over that inertia, that inertia of making that little bit of a positive step, that we can now get a feedback for something more beneficial in our lives. And I think if people understand that and give themselves that opportunity, they will start to really reshape those toxic attitudes and those negative thought patterns that are holding them back.
One of the things I found most powerful, talked about the mastermind group I'm part of earlier, and it's nothing to do, it's not a health group, a business group. One of the things I decided to do there just a couple of days ago was produce a video every day, because I really want to do it for my business, but I've been putting it off and off and off. So I just put it out there and said to the group, I'm going to do it every day. Can I post it in our little WhatsApp group so that you can see that I'm posting something of video-wise every day? And over the next 90 days, I give myself 90 days to do it, that I will do something, and I've done the first 3 days, every day. And it's just deciding to build that habit, like on Audit did with a 10,000 steps. And that's where we come in, I believe, and we don't even realize sometimes our own power with other people to keep them accountable, and just to get them through that, 30 days, 90 days, whatever it takes to develop better habits, or even a better habit to make a start.
Gareth, I love that. That was amazing. Thank you for sharing that. I love two things. One is I love gardening. which is a phenomenal exercise. And I love to reward myself, especially where I'm moving up to Cape Cod, and the house that I have and that we bought that we're moving into, it's got exquisite gardens, and I'm going to be building my own, place where I can grow food. So that's going to be my reward, is my time to go out and garden. So that's going to be, like, for me, my happy place. So that's going to be mine. But also, if you schedule your exercise with somebody, and make it, because you don't want to disappoint that person, if you make that time. So if you schedule that time, then it will happen. And it's just a wonderful bonding time. And I really miss it, because I had a walking partner, and then, COVID hit, and then, all this stuff. And we haven't gotten back to it. So I really miss that a lot. So gardening is going to be my reward. Thank you so much for joining us today. If you have any questions you would like us to dive into, message us through Facebook, social media, or we have a website, healthchangers.net, if you'd like to see the other episodes. Your health is so much worth working for. Make every bite count, make every action count. And if you need help, all of us here can help you on your journey. So we'll see you in the next episode.